Due to popular demand, I am reading out of my book, The Super Couple, A Formula for Extreme Happiness in Marriage. If you'd like to get a copy of this book, you can get it on breakfastwithbacon.com. Basically, you can get it on Amazon or anywhere books are sold. But also, if you want to listen to an audiobook, you can get that through Audible as well. And we're working on the Kindle version because something happened to it and it is no longer uploading. But until then, I have had people say, can you read the book? Because sometimes they can listen while they are doing their things. Anyway, so on today's part, I'm going into the first part of my book where I discuss when I interviewed super couples, this is what I thought I'd hear them say. It was basically me searching to see what exactly does a super couple have that other couples don't. So I had my mind made up like this is what I think that they're going to say. Well, it wasn't exactly on. So today I'm going to start with what I thought I'd hear and the first of 6 faulty assumptions. Faulty assumptions aren't as bad as they might initially sound. As a matter of fact, assumptions are the basis for all research and remain assumptions until they are either proven or disproven. Assumptions aren't just pulled out of the air, but rather are usually based on observation of things, people, and events before those assumptions are formed. I mean, who can fault the initial assumption that our Earth was flat? Looks pretty flat to me. And I certainly don't feel myself spinning every day as we circle the sun. But the guy who actually discovered that our Earth is round had to begin somewhere. Setting out to discover whether or not the Earth was flat was a great place to start, and we all know how that ended. But seriously, in order to discover the truth about super marriages, we had to start with our assumptions, most of which were found to be faulty or at best misunderstood. Additionally, these assumptions were not uniquely held by Christine Bacon and a few others, but rather these assumptions are commonly held by the populace, as is witnessed through everyday conversations and mediated depictions of other super couples. I mean, seriously, Brad and Angelina couldn't possibly have ever been anything but happy and in love, right? They were always smiling when we saw them. So clearly, there was always peace in their home. Warning, the previous sentence was sarcasm. Please refrain from any unintended belief in its contents. Belief in the aforementioned statement is hazardous to your marital health. This chapter is a compilation of some of the most often cited and believed, yet erroneous, assumptions of what super couples have that everyone else does not. This does not mean to be a comprehensive list, but rather it contains those assumptions that are often the most insidious in their ability to really sidetrack couples by causing them to focus on issues that have relatively little contribution to the attainment of superness. They are the same assumptions that poisoned my own thinking in marriage and almost led to its demise. But they were faulty. So here's the first. Faulty assumption number 1. They all got married the right way. Upon completion of one interview, I remember a particular spouse saying, "These questions aren't exactly what I had expected." I told her that they weren't especially academic sounding questions, but were born rather out of all the questions that I had over my lifetime as a spouse. The interview questions were birthed out of my perceptions of what I believed was happening inside of super couple marriages. Besides questions on the demographic makeup of this population, 2 of my very first questions, how did you meet? And did you ever have any other long-term relationships or previous marriages? Were based on my first erroneous assumption that super couples did everything the right way. Now, let me tell you what I mean by that. Because my marriage had so many initial difficulties, I attributed them to the fact that I had messed things up by not getting married the traditional way. I erroneously assumed that super couples fell into that population that also did things the right way. I got pregnant at a young age, married my boyfriend, then had a wedding a year later on our first anniversary, and almost 20 years later earned my first college degree. I used to tell my daughters, I don't care how old you are when you marry, just do it the right way. Get your degree, then get engaged, then get married, then have children. the opposite of me. So I was certain too that most super couples were on their first marriages because, after all, data have shown that second marriages have a higher failure rate than first marriages. And while this statistic is absolutely correct, I began to learn that though most super couples were on their first marriages, that 25% were on their second marriages and were equally as super. Now, I'm going to stop in my reading for a second to say, remember, I'm not talking about covenant marriages. I'm not talking about true marriages. So even though these second marriages were now what I qualify as fake, they were super in the fact that they were extremely happy with each other. How they're going to be judged by God is separate. That's not my issue in the reading of this book. Because remember, super couples were just those people that seemed to have it all and they seemed to look happy. So there were two couples or three that I interviewed that were on their second marriages. And many of these did not do things the traditional way either. One of my most loving super couples was, in fact, the product of an affair. Only one. But I will say, actually, let me come out of my reading again, that even though these two people that I'm thinking of right now, and they were the product of an affair, and I saw how in love they were 25 years later, the oldest, the man, his son will never speak to him again. His son got into the occult, blames it on his father, and so on. There's brokenness all over the family. And so I just want to clarify, because I wrote this book more than 10 years ago, and I hadn't done the research I'd done on standards at that point. So while their marriage looked happy, they had a lot of residual damage from being in these fake second marriages or marriages that were born out of infidelity. So kind of keep that in mind, because I don't want to scare any of you going, oh no, my spouse is going to enter into a fake marriage and they're going to be super happy. It really is a rare thing. Based on statistics, it shows that people in second marriages fail at an even higher rate than those in first marriages. It should be noted that nearly all affairs end, and then painfully, especially marriages that were the product of an affair. Each of these couples often became super not because they picked a different spouse, but precisely because they began to do the things differently in their second marriages than they did in their first. They chose to learn from those mistakes and change their own attitudes and behaviors. So while most super couples did do things the right way, this was not an essential part of the super couple formula. I know with certainty that I am not alone in this erroneous assumption that there's a right way and a wrong way to come together, because to one degree or another, nearly every couple that speaks to me about their troubled marriages says something similar to this statement. Well, if only we had dated longer. Or I think we just dated too long before we got married and we just felt everyone expected us to marry. Or we figured it was the next logical step, though we really should not have married at all. One couple I met with just this week began by saying, I'm 49 and she's 41. I guess our difference in age has finally caught up with us. I'm like, seriously? You're only 8 years apart, not 30. I mean, some couples can claim that they were simply too young and immature in their 20s or late teens to have gotten married, while others still claim they were too old at 40-something. Usually they blame their spouse for having been too old and set in his or her ways to have made the marriage work. Do you see where I'm going with this? No matter what our initial situation, once the painful or work required years arrive, we all begin to look backwards to justify why we believe we need to get out of our marriages. The human heart is so tender, it will do anything in its power to make hurt and pain go away. Likewise, the human brain is brilliant and can rationalize any set of circumstances whatsoever to accommodate one's current marital situation. We call that cognitive dissonance, even though I don't go into that in the book. Maybe if I write a second edition, I will. Especially when well-meaning friends and the media help us to do so. It makes sense that couples look backwards into the microscope of their relational history to figure out where they went wrong. We retrace the steps that could lead to clarity and answers regarding the causes of our troubled marriages. Was it me? Was it my spouse? What could I have done differently? Of course, hindsight is always 20/20. But the problem for so many is a misappropriation of responsibility onto static factors that absolve us of fault, such as our age, years together, or circumstances. Things like, he was a spender, I was a saver, it couldn't have worked. As my research found, there was no one right way for these couples' unions. Each came together based on a unique set of circumstances. So no matter what the perceived reason for the hurt, pain, or trouble in one's marriage, most everyone claims it failed because of not having gotten married the right way, claiming for the most part the marriage was doomed from the beginning. So let me say this clearly right here. There is no right way. That being said, I urge you to get to know your future spouse as best as possible before you marry, in order to establish a strong and intimate relationship before you say I do, one of the strongest elements in super couple marriages. That is definitely an easier way to minimize the future potential of difficulties that often lead to divorce. But I am also the same person who will tell you that marriages do not fail based on circumstances of how you came together before marriage either. We never really knew each other well enough. Marriages fail because of the choices we make within our marriages. Those choices of what to say and do or not to do to and with your spouse will determine the demise or success of your marriage. Consider arranged marriages, which I'm going to be studying soon. Studies have shown that arranged marriages are more fulfilling than non-arranged marriages. And according to a study done by Barker in 2011, love in arranged marriages is twice that reported in love or non-arranged marriages. They're called love marriages. While the thought of an arranged marriage might seem ridiculous and incomprehensible to most Westerners, the point still stands that the how of a couple coming together is significantly less important than what takes place within the marriage. So to be clear, there are paths that make the potential of attaining super a bit easier than others, but none are ever truly the reasons for marital superness or demise. So that's the first faulty assumption. So guys, if you're in a troubled marriage right now, consider what you're thinking. You look backward, you're thinking, oh, if I should have done this. What did I do wrong? You know what? I shouldn't have done that. Or I had these thoughts on my wedding day. I was crying. I should have known. None of that matters. One of the tricks of Satan is to have you focus on the past. None of that matters. It just makes you dwell and in an unproductive mindset on something that can't change. You can never change the past. You can never undo how you got together, the mistakes you made, the decisions you made, but you can make a decision today. And that's what this rest of the book is going to teach you. This is what all my videos are trying to teach you. What you do today can change everything. And I'll say this several times in these videos. If you can fall into love, you can fall out of love. And if you can fall into hate, you can fall out of hate as well. Feelings are fickle. Feelings are based on the actions that precede them. So don't be discouraged. If you're in a bad marriage today, it can turn around. Mine did. And I'd like to help you do the same with yours. If you like this, please like and subscribe to my video, to my channel. Subscribe to my newsletter as well. And follow me on all my social media channels, on Instagram, Facebook, X, YouTube, as well as Rumble. And go to my website, breakfastwithbacon.com. And if you'd like to support me, please see the link below in the buy me a coffee link. It really helps. I'm Dr. Christine Bacon. Thanks for watching this Bacon Bit. And as always, remember to live your life sunny side up.